Head cocked to the left. Partial deafness in ear. First point of attack. 2. Throat. Paralyzed vocal cords. Stop screaming. 3. Got to be heavy drinker. Floating rib to liver. 4. Finally, dragging left leg. Fist to patella. Summary prognosis. Conscious in 90 seconds. Martial efficacy. Quarter of an hour at best. Full faculty recovery. Unlikely.
Welcome back to the show. Now, right now, we are live via Skype. Whatever that is, I have no clue. But anyway, we are live with the director, Guy Ritchie. Welcome, Guy Ritchie, to the show.
It's a pleasure being here, Mr. King.
So before we start, what the heck happened between you and Madonna?
Well, Larry, that's not why I'm here. So next question, please.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your take on Sherlock Holmes. I mean, it's been done many times before, but what did you do differently?
Well, Larry, as you know, Holmes goes way back before either of us were born. Well, maybe not you, but I know I wasn't even thought of yet. So what I need to do was to take a century-old classic and bring it back into style. We all know the original 1939 version of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. But you see, my version needed to be fresh and sexy. So, you see, people just don't want to hear about this detective who just goes around solving random crimes. They want action. And action was something that wasn't really involved in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories. So, if they want action, you have to give them good actors, and you have to basically do what I did, and that is to reinvent Sherlock Holmes. You see, I introduced Lord Blackwood into my story, and I brought in Irene Adler, played by Rachel McAdams, and I also hinted at Professor Moriarty. But the funny thing is, these characters like Irene Adler was only involved in one of Doyle's stories, and that was known as The Scandal in Bohemia. Yet she is one of the most famous female leads in all of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes series. And even Professor Moriarty, I mean, he was Sherlock Holmes' famous arch enemy, and yet the truth is that the professor only appeared in one story, The Final Problem. He's only hinted at in a few other stories, but that's it. So basically, I took what made Sherlock Holmes a classic, and I just put it all together into one film.
That is quite interesting, Guy. While we're on the topic, let's take another look at a clip from your movie. Roll the clip.
I don't want to run anymore. I'll tell you everything.
I wish you would.
This movie was fan and fun-tastic. I mean it. But tell us about the characters and the settings that were all well depicted in this film.
Well, Larry, you see, the thing is, we stuck with the original setting of the classic stories, which is London, and we basically digitalized it from the floor up so that it looked like it did in the late 1800s. But with the characters, we needed people who could play the characters like Doyle wrote them. So that's why we picked Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes and Jude Law as Dr. Watson, because these people needed to be people who were actors, but as soon as they got on set and they were ready to act, they could pull off their part very well and could do it the way Doyle wrote their part. Not only that, but you see, when Doyle wrote these stories, his characters had to do with reliving the time period they lived in. Basically, they transmitted to the reader what was going on during that time period. And the truth is that Doyle describes Sherlock Holmes basically as careless in his stories. And that's how the world was. It was sort of filled with people who had carelessness. And it was also a time when people needed someone to help them guide their way. And that is why they involved Sherlock Holmes in their lives. And lastly, it was also a dark time where crimes could be committed and there would be no consequences at all towards these criminals. And that is why they introduced Holmes into this society, because Holmes did what he did best, and that was to solve cases.
Well, I have to say, Guy, that this is probably one of the most interesting ways I have ever, in my God knows how many years of interviewing people, this is the most interesting interview I have ever given. Ever. I mean, with this Skype stuff, you're in like London right now, and I'm over here in New York with my brothers. It's insane. But anyway, that is all we have for tonight, folks. So thank you, Guy Ritchie. Thank you, Ghost of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, for joining us from the underworld. And thank you, Sherlock Holmes, the invisible character, for joining us on the show. And until next time, I'm Larry King, reporting to you, the viewers. Thank you, and good night.